Hello and welcome, you're here with me, Charlie Tumbler. We're in DCS, we're in P-51, we've got some bombs and rockets, we're going to try and get this aircraft started and in the air in less than 6 minutes. Inside the cockpit, first thing we do is these 4 switches, I'll put them in the up position, then moving into the center panel, fuel clock on, and left click on the gun sight. Coming to the far left here, going to right click to 10 degrees, that's just because I've got bombs and rockets. You can go to 0 if you don't have bombs and rockets, and the flaps here won't move until the engine is starting later. Going to move the carburetor forwards, and then left click and hold on the rudder, scroll forwards to get 5 degrees. On here, underneath here is the engine RPM, I'm going to put that fully forwards, and the throttle here we're going to open just a little bit. Next, before we do any other starts, we're going to put the parking brake on. That's a little bit fiddly. It has 2 keys, so we have the wheel brake parking, and we also have wheel brake both. So these are your toe brakes, that's the parking brake. What we have to do is we press and hold the parking brake, we tap the toe brake, and then we let go of the parking brake, and if it stays open like that, then you know the parking brake is on. Next, fuel booster on, primer, 2, 3, and let go, and open the starter cap. Another key that I use here is the starter switch here. That is the actual switch under here, which I'm going to, let me just zoom out so you can see the propellers. I'm going to press and hold the starter switch, I'm going to left click, so the ignition's on both, and left click on the fuel mix, and let go of the starter. Engine is now up and running. I want to increase the RPM, so the normal power setting, so somewhere between 12 and 15 to get the engine warmed up. Now that the engine is running, I'm going to do my second line sweep. If you want any lights, you can do that with left or right clicking on these, depending if you want bright or dark. If you want your radar warning or your threat warning, turn it on. That detects if there's an aircraft behind you, and if it finds something behind you, it lights this light and rings this alarm bell. Radio on, this is on channel A. You have 4 channels, and they are pre-programmed by the mission editor. You can't change them in the game, and those don't do anything as of December 2024. Moving on to the main panel here, if you want to change your altimeter, mouse wheel up and down, so 2992 for example, and mouse wheel down this way to uncage your artificial horizon. Gun sight, the default setting is air to ground, which is this fixed mode. If you think you're going to be in a lot of air combat, this is the air to air gyro stabilize mode. You also have 2 other controls here, left click and move your mouse up and down, changes this, that's the wingspan of the target aircraft. So most fighters, for example, are between 30 and 35 feet, and this is the distance to target, and that's another keybind, which is here, so it's called gun sight range to target increase and decrease. You used to be able to do it by twisting the throttle, that doesn't work anymore, so I've got this key bound, and I'm going to change the range down to about 1,100 feet roughly, which is the convergence distance of these guns. Then I'm going to close the canopy. While that's happening, I'm just going to make sure that my flaps are up, and they are. Oh, I'm just scrolling the left wheel forward here. There we go. And drop down the rearview mirror, and we're good to go. To take off the parking brake, weirdly, you just have to tap the wheel brake, like so, and the aircraft will start to trundle forwards. The rudder will give you a small amount of control on the ground, but if you want to do sharper turns, you can use wheel brake left and wheel brake right, but it will bleed the speed off, so either increase the power while you turn, or just tap and use the rudder and do little steps, whichever you prefer. But as you can see, the speed is dropping off there every time I do it. Okay, now before we get airborne, on here, this is our manifold pressure in inches. We can go up to 61 inches for up to 5 minutes, so we've got plenty of time for the takeoff. And then RPM, we won't want to be above 30, but that is sort of tied into the throttle, and we don't need to change the RPM dial until we're in the air. So we're going to bring the throttle forwards. Now this aircraft is quite light, or as in, because of the flaps, it will feel very light. So as we get airborne, I'm going to try and be careful not to bounce into the ground. Mostly worrying about the left and right, and when the aircraft reaches the right speed it will climb itself, like so. I'm just controlling that. I'm going to bring up the undercarriage. It's now travelling. Get the aircraft under control. I'm going to put the flaps up. So, and then I can set the aircraft onto back in control for a max continuous power. So on here, I'm going to reduce the throttle down to 46, like so, 46 inches, and then I'm going to RPM, the engine RPM, I'm going to bring that down to 27, like so. And that means we can fly like this now for, well, until we run out of fuel. The fuel tanks, just before we go, is we have tanks, the dial's on here, and you can change which tank is being used with that red lever there. And we also have a tank gauge. It's quite hard to see. It's behind us there, just in that little hole. Now, if you can hear an alarm ringing, that's the radar or the threat warning. It's picking up the ground behind me. We have the orange light to say that it thinks there's someone behind me, and the bell is ringing. You can just turn that off if you want to, and turn it back on again later when you're in the air, or just put up with the alarm. When you get high enough, it will go off again. So that's it. We were in our P-51. We did the startup, we taxied, and we got airborne. Hopefully in less than 6 minutes. If you have any comments or questions, write down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Until then, happy hunting.